Hello there, I'm Tim and he's John, and this is How to Murder Time, a video podcast about games and things.
Unless you're only listening to the audio version, then it's not a video podcast.
It's also an audio podcast, which is just a podcast. I'm so confused.
I'm also doing a version which is neither video nor audio.
Is there a smell-o-vision one?
Yes.
That seems to be the upcoming thing. These weird cinemas.
It smells vaguely of mould.
Mould and regret.
Yes, and broken promises.
Yes. So, it's a what we're playing one, I think.
Yes.
Yes, so you want to start or shall I?
Oh, I'll start.
Go on then, off you go.
Because I've been playing Saints Row, Get Out of Hell.
This is the latest instalment in the hugely popular Saints Row franchise that's out now, is it?
Yes.
Just about.
Yes, it's the latest expansion to Saints Row 4, which of course was them making as much money as they could off Saints Row 3's assets because they were going bankrupt. And this is now they've gone bankrupt.
Yeah.
And
been bought by someone else.
Been bought by someone else, and they're putting out content.
Yeah. I mean, arguably Saints Row 4 was a Saints Row 3 expansion in itself, so who knows where it all begins. I was always fond of Saints Row 2 myself.
Yeah, same here.
But there was a certain... See, in modern Saints Row has just gone absolutely crazy, super bonkers, ludicrous, and that's a lot of fun in itself, but it sort of loses any kind of original, I don't know, meaning, even if the series had any at all. Saints Row 1 I've never played, but it's quite a dour, played straight kind of experience.
You will see it in the video I'm working on.
Okay, fair enough. So obviously you've got some kind of topic idea for the overall
I do.
thing. So Get Out of Hell then, ka-ching. How much is it?
It's
the usual sort of price for these?
$20, I believe.
Okay, so it's not a full price game then.
And
it is actually pricing as an
and
expansion.
it is actually a whole new city.
Yeah, I think that's perhaps the thing people will be looking for. If you like the format and you're up to this point already, you've gone all the way through the previous 4 games, you definitely do want more of largely the same.
Yeah, it's almost exactly identical, apart from the fact it's all set in hell, because at the start, the devil kidnaps the president to go marry his daughter.
Right. Okay.
And on Kinsey's birthday.
Right.
And so Gat goes to hell to try and rescue him, and because it's Kinsey's birthday, she goes along too as a birthday treat.
Right, okay. Premise, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, and so you get there, then you play as Gat for the first mission until you get to... Ultor are there.
Oh, the Ultor Corporation.
Yeah, lots of dead people are there from the previous games.
Yeah.
The sisters are there, and...
Okay, yeah.
And so
pretty much everyone who got killed off, you get to be reunited with.
And very early on, you discover the interesting fact that you don't have to play as artificially important Johnny Gat.
Yes.
And you can play as Kinsey.
Yeah, I was quite dubious just about the whole concept because I just didn't give a toss about Johnny Gat at all. He's sort of set up as the boss or the player, whichever game you're in, as your best friend in game and your main homie in the gang and stuff. And huge amounts of sort of artificial plot importance is put upon this generally not that likeable character, and so most of the time I spent just driving around with Pierce, who was a lot more fun and interesting, and Kinsey was a lot more fun and interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, so I never really noticed that Gat wasn't even there for like the whole 3rd game and most of the 4th game as well. It's all why do I care about Johnny Gat? So why do I care about a game that on the title sounds like it's supposed to be all about him?
Yeah, well, don't worry, because you can play as Kinsey, although every single cutscene references you as Johnny and doesn't adapt, so it's a little bit weird. And at the end, the final mission, you have to play as Johnny, which is really
fair
annoying
enough.
He's an idiot.
It is. His name is on the box, yeah. But you don't have to put up with him for most of it. So
no,
that
you can
makes it sound a lot more appealing, yeah.
You can put him back in his box and leave him there.
That's fine.
And what you basically have to do is you've got a bunch of missions to do to annoy Satan enough to get noticed, so he comes at you. So, as Johnny puts it, you can shoot him in his face.
Right.
Because that's his plan, to shoot Satan
plan.
in the face.
Okay, that is somewhat in keeping with the general style of the franchise. Yeah.
And you basically have to...
so is it the usual sort of capture districts by doing activities type thing?
You have to do the rep grind to unlock the missions. The missions happen at certain points. And it's very, very gamey clear that... this is a game, therefore there's going to be this. There's actually one point where it's referenced as, I'm going to go off and do this, and it's going to take an indeterminate amount of time in a game type way.
Fair enough.
And so basically you just have to do the usual takeover things to get up your reputation to be able to unlock the next bit of the plot.
Okay.
So it's the stuff like this. Insurance fraud is now taking years off somebody's time in hell.
Okay.
There's a nice new one where you have to stop people falling to hell before they hit the ground.
Okay, so sort of catch type
Yeah.
gameplay. Mhm.
Or you can, people who are going up, you can stop them going up and rescue them from that fate too.
Fair enough.
There's also the usual rampage is still there.
Yeah, timed assaults, that sort of thing.
Yeah, they still work. It's still the base
I think if you're
gameplay
not
is
broken,
still
don't
fun.
fix it, yeah.
You start with no powers, and it's still very powery.
So it's very much in the sort of superhero
Yeah.
craziness
You-
mould of 4.
You have the ability to super sprint again, which is
Mhm.
almost identical.
Yeah.
And also you have wings,
Okay.
so you can fly as long as you have stamina. And the flying mechanic in it is just a thing of beauty. It is smooth, plays well. I don't know how it plays on a controller, to be
Okay.
fair. I haven't tried that. I've been using mouse and keyboard. But the flying is just lovely. Swooping around the city, picking up the collectible orbs as you do in it's
Yeah.
a computer game,
Yeah.
which you then use to unlock more of your powers.
Oh, that's good, because I mean, a lot of these sort of open world superhero games, you do get some sort of glide power or super jump or whatever, but actual out and out flying tends to
Yeah.
be quite a staid experience
You-
if it's there at all.
You have to, keep an eye on your stamina, because when that goes down, you fall out of the sky. You also have to keep an eye on your speed, because if you go too slow, you stall.
Okay.
And you...
So a bit like a sort of low speed fixed wing aircraft type
yeah.
model.
So what you basically have to do is swoop to get speed,
Uh-huh.
as you would expect. And you have a limited number of flaps you can do to get yourself a bit more speed.
Okay.
And it just feels wonderful. It's the best flying of a person in any game I've ever played.
Are there vehicles in this thing?
Yes.
Do you ever use them? Once you got your...
There's a thing at the start where you have to use a vehicle. It tells you to get in a car at the start,
Yeah.
and then you won't get into another car until you try the capture the APC missions.
So where you have to actually capture a vehicle.
Yeah, and at
that-
that point you think, oh, screw this, these are too weak, too slow, I'm going to fly everywhere.
Because the cars are certainly a very important part of 2 and 3, but in 4, since it's all essentially based around superpowers, you get to a point very early on where being in a vehicle just hampers you and slows you down.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's much the same as it. Just
Yeah.
super speeding slows you down compared to flying.
Yeah,
Everything
Why
slows
not
you
fly
down.
everywhere if you can? Yeah.
And
I
so
see.
the first thing I did when I was going through unlocking new abilities was just to make the flying work better.
Yeah.
And by
yeah.
the end, of course, you've got infinite stamina and
You just can
can
go
flap
for it.
loads of times, and it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, brilliant.
There's these wonderful orbs you get
Yeah.
where you go through the orbs. It's got an arrow on it,
Yeah.
and then you get several orbs appear past it that you have to follow
Oh.
a path to get
So
to
sort of
capture that orb.
chained collectibles.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it just means there's some really nice bits of flying from that, which is just fantastically fun.
Yeah, I see. So a sort of a great setting to just do something that's intrinsically fun in a lot. I
Yeah.
suppose. Yeah, that's a good format.
The plot basically involves you get to hell, then you have to get in with I think it's 5 different great evil people from history. Vlad the Impaler,
Okay.
Shakespeare, people like that.
Shakespeare. Right.
And so you do a quick mission for them to
Mm-hmm.
get them on your side, and they give you new abilities like your attack abilities. You've got the usual slam, jump up, slam into the ground, do
Yeah.
a large burst of damage around you. That's got a couple of different modes.
See, that right there sounds like it has the potential to go quite spectacularly wrong if you pick the wrong people from history to be having as your in-game buds. So presumably, Vlad the Impaler's far enough back that no one really knows or cares, but haven't got like Hitler or anything in there, have you?
No. It's
Okay,
it's
fair
all it's all okay, vetted by PR. type
Fair
people.
enough, yeah.
I actually
Not
can't-
taking too many risks with the idea of hell and
it's
and sin and
Blackbeard.
evil. Yeah,
Vlad. I can't remember who the others are actually.
Fair enough.
Oh no, it's the twins.
Oh, the two Empire
Yeah.
leaders from the third game, I think.
Second and
Part of the
third, I
Morning
think.
Star, aren't
Yeah.
they? Yeah.
So there's stuff like there's ability to summon an imp who will attack. There's an aura you can have which hurts people when they get near you. So it's just basically.
So an unexpected magical direction for the franchise, then.
I would say nothing's unexpected at this time.
Well, I suppose that is the point. I mean, yeah. Literally nothing would surprise me about what a next instalment could possibly entail.
There's an
kind
awfully
of
long
series.
musical number in the middle, which is incredibly well produced.
Right. I mean, I particularly enjoyed I think it was a DLC on the third game where you're playing as a sort of star of a sort of 50s sci-fi B movie with ray guns and everything and flying saucers. And the flying saucers end up actually attacking Steelport, and you have to sort of drive them off and cope with it all, which was quite fun. But yeah, and I think there was a finale on the third game which had you ended up on Mars using some of the Red Faction assets, I believe. So nothing surprises me about Saints Row.
It's a dumb game, but an intelligently dumb game.
Yeah, dumb game, but a lot of fun.
Yeah,
which I think a lot of the more sort of up their own backsides GTA installments seem to have gotten away from.
It's basically take GTA 4 and do everything the opposite, and all of a sudden you get a fun game out of it, and it is brilliant. And I don't mind the fact that I paid, was it 15 quid or whatever it converts to, for a 5-hour game which I've now been playing for I think about 10 hours.
So it's quite short.
It's very short,
but lots of replay
lots
value,
of content, and I've just been swooping around the city collecting orbs, and it's brilliant. I like it, and it's Saints Row, so I always will.
Would you say it's worth picking up if you hadn't played any of the previous stuff? Is there too much sort of internal narrative you'd be missing? Would you be better off going back to?
I would say if you were to pick up either 2 or 3, and then get 4 and that after, because 2 and 3 are better games.
4 is totally, just off the rails, really.
Yeah, 4 is good.
Yeah,
but I don't think if you started the franchise on 4 or
there's no way you could take that seriously at all.
You're not going to get any of the context as to how crazy it's got,
because you need some sort of baseline normality to have come to it from. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so 2 or 3, 2 probably. 2 is the best game in the series.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to talk about The Witcher.
Wow.
The Witcher 1, yes, in my traditional fashion. I'm cutting edge and up to date. Well, see, I think over summer I was gifted The Witcher 2, Assassins of Kings, on Steam.
A fantastically good-looking game.
Yeah, and I it's on my desktop and I had it installed, but I've refused to start it until I finish Witcher 1 because I think I might miss something important or something. I know most people don't work like that, and I'm
Nobody work. Well, people do work like that.
I have The Witcher and I had enjoyed it, but I'd never finished it because it is, well, it's quite long and it's quite difficult as well. Not the basic combat, which essentially is you have a number of different sword styles: solo opponent, fast style, slow style, and 2 different swords, a silver one and a steel one for monsters and one for men. And that's all fairly straightforward, nice and easy. I mean, the whole first Witcher game is essentially a massive mod to the Aurora engine, whatever Neverwinter Nights was, or the BioWare's Aurora engines, and CD Projekt basically bought the license for that and then developed The Witcher around it, and that was successful enough for them to start good old games, and I'm surprised they've bothered writing games anymore.
They still are, though.
Being a games platform is generally far more lucrative.
In their credit, unlike Valve, who I got told off on Twitter this week for being negative about again.
When was the last time Valve made a game? Was it some Left 4 Dead thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was Left 4 Dead.
Like
they're
5
never going
years
to.
ago.
They were afraid to do 3, and they've hit 2 on all of their games now.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they made the sequel, and there's a third one out now.
Yeah, third one's coming out soon, later this year, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm quite keen to get an eye on that as well. I have liked The Witcher, but I never finished it, like I say. So I thought, right, time to knuckle down and get on with it. And this time I'm not going to hold back on spoilers and walkthroughs because I want to get this goddamn job done. You know, I've written old school fetch quests there. There is a lot in The Witcher. There's a lot of reasonably well voice acted content and interesting characters in there as you're working your way through this big old plot and story. A lot of it's quite cinematic, but interspersed is the usual sort of old school 2000 and era fetch quest type RPG, single player RPG. You know, where you're sort of running backwards and forwards between 4 or 5 different people in a town who haven't got the nous to just go to a central place and talk to each other. They have to send monster slaying albino mutant superhero type Geralt to run backwards and forwards across town with their petty little notes and so on. But so there's quite a lot of that, and that does get quite bogged down as well. There is a quest journal, and it talks about, it fills you in with the background and the detail of what's going on, but it can be quite obtuse, and you can often have a lot of trouble. I certainly had quite a bit of trouble progressing the story, knowing who to talk to and when to talk to them and what to say to them and so on, and which bits need to be done in what order. There's a whole lot of interwoven stories that feed off each other and update each other's statuses and progresses. And it does make for quite an in-depth and substantial puzzle-solving exercise, just working out.
Do you have a notebook next to your computer?
It's not quite that bad. Most of it is all held in its own massive and internal glossary and journal and so on, but it's still quite tricky pushing it forward a lot of the time, I found. I've written Time of Day there. This is a real pain in the arse in this game is that a lot of it tries to go for this realistic world where people are only present at certain times of in-game day.
Yeah.
And it's quite hard. You can't just rest. You can't just stand where you are and press rest. And like in the Elder Scrolls games where no one bats an eyelid when you're just stood in a town square stationary for 8 hours solid, and then you sort of animate and go and talk to a person who's just arrived.
I do that in real life.
Exactly. No, you have to go to particular campsite fires to meditate the time away and so on. And then by the time you've gone out there and you've meditated a bit, you've lost track of what you were doing, and there's something else that needs to be updated as well. Certain people are only there at midnight, some are only there at noon, some are only there during opening shop hours and stuff. So there's a lot of that sort of needlessly confusing and complicating the business of making the quest get closer to being finished. And that always slowed me down a bit. I mean, I don't mind it. I'm enjoying the story and the depth of it all, but it's not something you can casually just go, follow the next waypoint, done. You have to sort of think about it, work out which side of it. A lot of the quests come in the form of a sort of branching dual argument against two different factions type thing, so you have to talk to the right people and decide how you want to actually... A bit of role-playing, I suppose you could say. Who am I siding with in this particular dispute? Who makes the most sense? What does my version of Geralt think about these issues and so on? So a lot of that going on as well. So the basic combat, it is literally attack monster, left click, and then when the cursor flashes, click again. And that's your sort of chained, sort of build up chain attack type gameplay mechanic there. Then when they're all dead, you can pick up a whole load of giblets and whatever and turn them into potions, which you largely use to get through the difficult fights. There's a massive potion dependency, as most of us do in these games. But this is actually reflected in a toxicity bar. Each time you chug a potion, that bar gets higher and higher, and the screen gets more wibbly and covered in red flecks and so on. And eventually you can't drink any more potions because you're totally doped out, and so you have to go away and rest. So it does sort of, unlike, I'm thinking of some of the Elder Scrolls games, particularly Morrowind, I think, just didn't care how many potions. You could right-click to pause the game and interact with the menu, and then you could drink as many potions as you like in that go, and they all immediately take effect, which is the easy way to beat almost any challenge. And I think they tried to stop you doing that in the later games. You can only drink like 5 at a time or something. In
Skyrim, if you drink too many, you then have to spend the next 10 minutes pissing.
Bladder capacity as an RPG stat, yeah. It's not looking too bad. The Witcher 1, I haven't got a date for it. 2000 something or other, 2007ish. I guess.
Forget.
While I'm rambling, you could be looking things up on Webipedia or something. But I managed to crank all the detail up, and some of the gameplay footage you might be watching whilst you're listening to this on the video version shows you how it's looking on my machine. And that's not bad for a game that old. No, you found the book, you fool.
Oh, I have, haven't I?
Oh dear, web fail. So, there's not that jarring sense of old school game graphics.
2007.
2007,
October.
Good guess. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. 7-8 year old game, and it's looking decent enough to be enjoyable. Whereas something like Baldur's Gate itself or Icewind Dale, those are really early games, or even the original Neverwinter Nights this engine was based on, the Neverwinter Nights remake rather, do start to push the suspension of disbelief because you're starting to obviously be looking at a computer game the whole time. This isn't so bad, so I'm enjoying that. And the swamps and forests, lots of radial flora and time of day and shading and so on, all jolly good.
It always was a beautiful game.
And it always really hammered my PC the first time I got it. So now I'm playing it in full flow with no problems at all, with all the detail on, and it's very good, yeah. I quite like the sort of learning about monsters to be able to take their bits to fulfill the contracts type thing. You read various books on lore and legends about particular beasts, which then allow you to take the right trophies off of the monsters to fulfill particular contracts. And that's the sort of side gameplay that goes on throughout. It's a simple game, but there's a lot of depth to it. I've written 18 rating there, of course, famously the pornographic playing cards you collect as you go through.
Yeah, they have apologised for that.
Yes, I should hope so, really. I mean, I sort of dabbled a bit with it as I was playing through, because often, a lot of the time, you pick a dialogue option with a female NPC who you express some kind of, I don't know, politeness to, and suddenly, whoa, hello, I didn't mean for it to go that far. And there we go, another trophy on my collection of weird concept art, half-naked women collection cards.
It was obviously an artist who needed some form of guidance as to what he should be spending his time.
I was looking at it in the context of the game, and it makes absolutely no difference whatsoever to anything. I mean, it's not as if the story of Geralt is necessarily about having sex with lots of women, particularly. There's not even a sort of underlying moral message about misogyny going on there, in the same way that perhaps, I don't know, James Bond the James Bond stories and films sometimes try to portray. It's like this whole idea was just tacked on the side to justify an 18 rating, which would then make it a bit edgy and interesting and hopefully shift boxes. You could strip that whole side thing out of the gameplay and it would make no difference whatsoever. You could still be nice to the women you meet and you'd carry on mostly through a story which isn't really about women and your shocking treatment of at all. I've written moral ambiguity there. It does prize itself on not having the usual BioWare blue-green morality meter. There's no Paragon Renegade choices here or light side, dark side, but there are a lot of choices, and that was something that made me quite awkward and sort of a little bit less receptive to the game originally. It was that every time I come across one of these, I would never know what I'm supposed to pick. And I'd never know which one would be the right one. I'd try and be a nice character, a righteous character, but it delights in presenting with choices to which there is no correct solution, and so generally you just have to pick one and go for it. Typically the sort of diametric choices are, most of them tend to revolve around a kind of fantastical racism that's built well into this world where the humans are sort of dominating and expanding, and you've got elves and dwarves being more and more marginalised and driven into the hills, and then they're starting terrorist organisations that are sort of starting to attack the towns and stuff. And poor old Geralt, who basically is not even a human, he's a mutant and regarded by many as a sort of monster, but he's hired by humankind to fight monsters, and so suddenly you find yourself as literally an outsider on this conflict and having to make choices and decisions about where you stand on the way society itself is going about it all. It's quite interesting, and I suppose the second playthrough, that's not really grating as much this time. It's actually perhaps I'm just a bit tired of the standard, right, yes or no, black and white choices you see in these games.
I'm certainly tired of those.
Yeah, but they seem to be the safe bet when you're writing a big sweeping RPG narrative. Is to make sure that the moral choices are very clearly labelled and that you have a stat or something that you can follow it all through. With this, you make your choices as you go through, and then periodically concept arty type cutscenes all kick in where Geralt monologuing about what's happened and how he feels about the choices he's made and what's happened, what's changed as a result, which I find quite interesting. Not sure that I'd be interested enough to play it, 4 or 5 times in a row just to see how it all happens each different time.
No.
But it's nice that your actions do matter in some way, and that there is a sort of capacity for that to be built into it. So, yeah, enjoying that a lot. I'm hoping to finish it as quickly as possible, though, because I want to crack on and have a go at Witcher 2.
And especially as Witcher 3
Witcher 3 is coming along. Yeah. I know, it's one of those oh god, why did I wait so long catch-up exercises. But I'm trying not to rush it to the point where I'm just not paying any attention to what's going on at all. I'm trying to savour it for its own sake. I think I got to Act 4 previously once, maybe 3, and I think there's 5 of them and an epilogue. So
that's not too bad.
Yeah, I need to crack on. I need to get it done, though. But I need to actually pay attention to what's going on as well. So, yeah, enjoying that a lot. Bit of an old school revival there. Over to you.
Okay, I'm going to talk about a game which I don't think we've talked about before. Which
you've talked to me about it a lot, but we forgot to have a microphone around.
Yeah, we forgot to be making a podcast at the
Whoops.
time. You'd be amazed how often that happens. This is Shadow of Mordor. Or, as I like to call it, There's Been a Mordor.
There you go.
Yeah.
How many people are going to get that joke?
Everyone.
Okay.
It's basically Assassin's Creed with Batman's fighting, but in Mordor.
So this isn't a typical hobbity adventure, nice jolly walking holiday with a few orcs about, is it?
You could say it's a bit dark.
Quite a different direction from the generally accepted domain of the franchise of Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
You were a cheap knockoff Aragorn.
Okay.
If he had absolutely no noticeable morals.
Right.
Is it wrong to be bad to orcs?
Aragorn has a huge amount of morals certainly in the story, and some of that's conveyed in the films as well.
Can you do whatever you want to orcs?
Is this an examination of the enemy of people too, set in the Lord of the Rings and
well,
notoriously black and white?
They don't mention any of it. It just happens.
Okay.
You die.
Yeah.
Your family's killed. You die.
Yeah.
You get taken over by Wraith.
Okay.
And you then work together to...
is it a buddy movie?
Randall
and Hopkirk.
It's a comedy buddy movie. And you then go around... It's Ubisoft. Is it? No, it's not. It wants to be Ubisoft, so it's got towers you have to climb.
Oh, what viewpoints to unlock and such. Sounds familiar.
Which are completely pointless. And you've got these little tasks to do, missions to do.
Yeah. It's a popular format these days.
Yeah, it's very derivative, apart from one feature which I'll get to in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Gollum turns up, of course.
Okay.
Because my lord Gollum has 2
cameos. Is that actually Andy Serkis or
I don't believe so.
Or
no.
Nolan North rasping a bit.
Normal Nolan North, I believe.
Fair enough.
Uh, and there's this plot going on which is incredibly forgettable and stuff's going on, but there's this nemesis system.
Okay.
You actually get to the point when you realise playing the game that you are meant to be dying to these people to level them up.
Death leveling. That's a Guild Wars 1 thing.
Yeah.
That was bonkers there.
Basically, what you can do
Yeah.
is you've got several mechanisms for basically you're making certain generals in the army or lieutenants or captains be on your side
Okay.
and work for you. So you basically you fight a low-level minion,
Yeah.
and then you can dominate him, and then from then on he's on your side.
Oh, so it's not so much going out and a massive roaring rampage of revenge, more a huge PR recruiting exercise, is it?
It's basically the most
Headhunting,
Machiavellian
literally.
recruitment drive ever.
Right.
And so you want to take out the guys at the top, the generals at the top.
Okay.
And to do that, if you attack them head on,
Yeah.
then they're going to have lots of lieutenants surrounding them
Okay.
who are on their side. But if you've taken over all the lieutenants,
Yeah.
then they're going to help you in that fight.
Okay.
So his bodyguard's going to be helping you.
And presumably these generals are what, responsible for your family slaughter in the beginning or something? Is
Uh,
there some plot or
You're
you're looking blank?
The top guy you're after,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fair enough. Because of some plot.
You don't care the fact that he's responsible for anything because they're orcs and you can just kill orcs.
Fair enough.
And so what happens is you end up trying to get people into the right positions by killing their people that they need to take over or helping them when they...
It does sort of remind me of the sort of, particularly Assassin's Creed 2, the base game. It had this sort of web of suspects that you worked through, and there's various low-level family members, and eventually you end up taking out people who are responsible for killing your family at the top. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sort of working your way up through the revenge, as it were.
Yeah, and you need to get information about what the weaknesses are on each one. So some of them might be... actually, a horribly large amount of them are immune to arrows. I don't know how that works. Which means it's really hard. You've got this wonderful bow you can shoot people with, and that doesn't work against them. And so what you have to work out how best to take people out. Also, then you're trying to level up the ones that you want to be on your side. So there's several points in the game where I've got to the point where I had to think, right, all the people that I've got are too low level.
Oh, can you not level them up once they're yours?
No. So I'm creating... basically, they become a named person by killing you. Mm-hmm. And each time they do that, there's a bunch of promotions and stuff happens. And the only time these promotions happen is when this happens as well.
Is that this nemesis
Yeah.
system? Right.
So what you have to do is you have to deliberately get killed more than once in the game to push stuff forwards.
Well, yeah, I see how that works. I'm just wondering why you designed it like that. That's a bit odd.
The alternative
suppose-
is probably a bit more complex.
Well, the alternative would be to capture them or subvert them or whatever, and then have some kind of weird little orc training school that happens off screen, like in Assassin's Creed. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Odd that you'd have to fail lots to make winning better.
Oh, you're not failing though.
Being killed by them.
Because death has no impact at all. And once you
suppose if you're already
realise
dead, yeah.
death has no impact. So yeah, and you think, actually, I'm meant to be thinking about this in a completely different way than I would normally.
It's interesting, yeah.
And it's actually a really good game. It's fun. It's a bit short. The problem is, by the time you've unlocked all of the Nemesis system,
Yeah.
it gave me the I unlocked the ability to take people on your side, and it comes very late in the game.
Yeah.
And between the time where I unlocked it and then did the next enforced story mission, which was you should try doing this on some of the lieutenants, it had to force me to do it on the last lieutenant who I hadn't taken over.
So the takeover tutorial was I
got the takeover tutorial and thought, this sounds like it could be useful. I'm going to use this wholesale. Did everybody?
That's not their fault that you're a massive overachiever. Yeah.
There was nobody on the Orc army who was actually working for.
So what would happen if you'd already taken over everyone and then it needed you to do one?
It forced me to do it on the last one.
Oh, okay.
The last person that I hadn't gone to it.
So they had thought of that, yeah.
Yeah. And it's really quite fun. And the only problem is, by the time that you unlock that brilliant mechanic at the end, the game just doesn't have enough game left to make it quite as meaningful as it could.
So too short, could have done with another whole lot. Well, yeah, but then...
No, it wasn't too short. It was just this key mechanic came too late in the progress.
I see, yeah.
If it had come a lot earlier...
Because that sounds like the core unique selling point, I suppose.
Yeah.
It sounds like that much of the rest of it is essentially Assassin's Creed Mordor edition.
Yeah, up until that point, all you can do when you get to the enemies is to get the weaknesses of one person or reveal them to find out who they are. And until the time you actually get to take them over, it doesn't quite have the same range of possibilities.
So is there sequel potential?
Oh, definitely.
So you probably see that base mechanic more fully integrated and usable in a second game.
Yeah,
I guess
it won't be the same guy, but the ideas behind it are very usable.
Excellent.
So yeah, it's a very good game, and I recommend it.
I need to have a look at that. By the sounds of it, it does sound like right up my alley, as it were.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about Elite Dangerous. So still going there. Yeah, you are right to I got to Explorer rank.
Can I just say,
Yeah. Well,
everybody out there, we all are in this position.
yes.
Continue.
Okay. Well, I'm about to say a few things that I thought it was heresy to think, let alone say, but that's just how I roll. Fear me, orthodoxy. Yes. So I've been. You might have seen the blog post on the How to Murder Time website where I go on at great length about the sheer scale of the game. Essentially presents you with a 1-to-1 scale Milky Way galaxy. And gives you a ship that can do like 11 light years at a jump. So I ran a few numbers, and I worked out that it would take, if you do a realistically achievable 2 hours of gameplay a day, that's including weekends, it would take you until about October sometime to reach the far end of the galaxy.
Understandable.
That's assuming your jump drive can actually reach all the gaps that the game throws at you. Most of it seems to be about 8 light years apart or so.
There's a couple of annoying 12s.
Yeah. So you would have
I
to
know,
find
I'm trying to get some of the 12s.
So that would just be straight line jump, and that includes fuel scoop time as well. If you stopped to actually scan anything on the way, it would take you years or decades, even if you wanted to do the actual planets on the way. So clearly, I don't know why they've added a universe that big. I mean,
because they can.
It's the scale of it all, I suppose. It's an interesting and quite pleasing and impressive technical recreation of a galaxy. They've used some sort of procedural generation to fill in the gaps, but so I thought, I'm going to see it all. So I set out to fill in the Explorer title track. You got 3 title tracks in this game. There's the combat-y one, which is where the eponymous title comes from. And then there's a mercantile one, which I think increments when you gain money by trading. Yep. Or is that just money, full stop?
I think it's money through trading.
I think it is trading, yeah. And then there's an Explorer one, which does increment with money earned by selling your cartographic data to the Universal Cartographics option on the station menus. And I managed to get up to Surveyor on that. I don't know how many pips that up is. That might be about 3 or 4. So,
ooh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It started aimless, then mostly aimless. I think there was one in between, but I jumped straight to the Surveyor in the end because I decided to go out on a big, long exploration of the edge of the known universe. The known galaxy, is only about 400 light-year wide sphere centred on Sol. And I managed to trog my way up to the edge of that and then just cast off into the unknown. And there are no stations, nothing out there. It's just stars and empty planets for like tens of thousands of light years in any direction at that point. I stared into the face of immensity and got a little bit scared and came back. But I managed to find enough planets. I can't remember how far out I got. I managed to make it out about another 100 and so light years out, and then came back into the 400 light year sphere. So a tiny, tiny speck on a tiny, tiny speck, which is generally what we find when we look at things cosmological. Yes, and I think that might be part of the problem, because pretty much throughout my entire big long loop trip of like 200-300 light years out into the unknown, I found nothing that I couldn't have already found inside the known.
Yeah, planets mainly.
Planets, yes. Some of them had rings, some of them were gassy, some of them were rocky, some of the stars were a bit yellowy, some of them were quite red. I didn't find a neutron star, I didn't find a black hole. There are apparently out there. People have screenshots where they've got fantastic lensed warping effects on the black holes. Apparently those are worth quite a lot of money as well, but I imagine if you jump in and get too close with those, you tend to take a bit of damage. This is the thing.
You're not going to come back from that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. How do you find a black hole if jumping to it destroys you instantly? It must land you somewhere safe.
Well, you can see black holes.
Yeah. Maybe they're in-system objects. I mean, yeah, it would be rather unfair if randomly every sort of 20th jump just destroyed you instantly without any warning. So, so I don't know what I was expecting to find. It's space. I remember seeing some wag on Eve help chat back in the day at the start who'd obviously struck out in this great bold spirit of exploration like I just did. I got so far out and then just started bitching in help chat that it's all boring, it all looks the same, and some wag came back with, what did you expect, palm trees, it's space. So yeah, that very much applies on this scale as well. There isn't a lot out there to find. They call it exploration gameplay, but essentially it is looking at the same things over and over, and I'm starting to get a little bit bored of it.
Uh-oh.
Yes, and I think I'm probably going to be torn apart by random people on the street for saying
Everyone's getting a little bit bored of it.
Well, yeah, and I sort of touched on this in the blog post a little bit. If you took the basic game of Elite in 1984 and wrote a list of its features, and then went and looked at Elite Dangerous and went down ticking off which ones they've managed to put in, pretty much everything is there.
Yeah.
But a 1984 game that fit in 22K on a BBC Micro Model B doesn't have a huge feature set to begin with. So,
to be fair, they're going to add new features.
In a way, they have completed the objective they set out to do, which is to recreate a game from 30 years ago. Well done. The graphics are much better, the music's much better. All this exploration gameplay is new and interesting, and the physics space model is far better as well. I think I remember in Elite, every system had 1 star and 1 planet, which had 1 star base around it. So there wasn't even a sort of map of the star system in any real sense. There was just 3 objects. So yes, it is better than Elite, obviously, 30 years ago, but I don't know if modern gaming's taught me to expect more repeated novelty throughout my gaming experience.
I think it has.
Yeah.
The way I look at it is, because I backed it on Kickstarter.
Well, I bought it on release.
Yeah. And my attitude towards it has always been, I'm not going to get obsessed playing it. So I jump in and I play a couple of hours a week maybe, and then leave it, because I just like the atmosphere and what you're doing.
Yeah, the atmosphere is fantastic, but
people who are jumping in and playing it daily like it was any other game,
like some 40-hour RPG narrative or something. Yeah.
I think the lack of content is going to be very, very damaging for that.
I think so, but I'm not sure what you could add. It is space. What do you expect? Palm trees. You know, I mean, what can you do? There's a lot of talk about backstory empires and all the rest of it, but none of that seems to make much of an impact on my day-to-day.
They're adding better grouping, and by better grouping, I mean
any grouping would be good. Yeah, they have groups, but that's more private server who's allowed in my instance rather than we are working together. Yeah,
they're adding working together to do missions and having the payouts go, so you better do combat missions.
I'm surprised that wasn't there to begin with. It wasn't there in Elite originally either, but then Elite was a single-player game. So.
Yeah, they released. And it was a very arbitrary, we're going to release now. I wasn't expecting to say it. They did it about a year ahead of when I expected.
Yeah. I suppose they wanted to be well out from under whatever Star Citizen turns out to be. But so they got their own space to launch in, and it seems to have done well. There's lots of people bought it. Seems to be a lot of people talking about it on the various Reddits and whatever. But I don't know.
I do think it's a game you're going to come back to occasionally and enjoy for a while. It's not going to be
I fancy
a main
bit of
game.
Space trading old school, and you'll dip in for like half an hour, do maybe 1 or 2 jumps, do some things, scan some planets, do a trade or whatever, and then log off and not come back for another 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah,
I suppose that's how I need to look at it. This is a long-term investment, and that's sort of partially the spirit in which I bought the thing in the first place. I thought, well, yeah, okay, I approve. Yes, a sort of Kickstarter approval type thing, but I don't do Kickstarter or pre-orders, so I had to wait for it to launch. Yeah. But I don't see a problem rewarding them for what they've done. Well done. I think the world needs more of this sort of thing. But it's a very sort of patronising approval of the principle rather than an enjoyment of the actual game, which I'm starting to find is quite samey. And yes, initially very impressive, but doesn't have a lot of depth yet.
Yeah,
I say yet.
They need to say what they're going to add depth. Okay,
I don't know if there's a roadmap somewhere, but
yeah, we know there's combat missions coming. Fine, they're going to be good for a certain point of view.
I have to say, I've not really done much with the combat at all, and I wonder, is that the point of the game? I sort of took this exploration thing and just ran with it.
That's the thing. You can
is it the shooty?
You can jump in and have a shooty battle against people, and get the satisfaction from that, because it is a very good jump in shooty game.
Yeah, because most of the big populated systems have a nav beacon on the system map that you don't even need to scan or explore for. You can go straight there. Once you're there, it will just keep spawning ships, some of whom will be wanted pirates, some of whom are not, and you just keep firing away until you're bored.
Another game I played isn't really worth talking about at the moment is I was playing X-Wing Alliance.
Oh yeah, we should probably cover that another time.
Yes, there's a lot to cover on that.
Yeah,
and Elite really does have better combat than the X-Wing games.
Really?
Having played the two together, I much prefer the combat in Elite. So
it's quite
it does it well.
I
it
suppose,
works, and there is ways they can take that. Interesting ways they can take that in the future. It's just
Yeah,
it's going to be a year or so until.
Perhaps I should just totally dismantle all my explory type aspirations and try and fit out the Viper I've got for combat and just try blasting some
You should
stuff
try
for
a couple of
session
battles,
or two.
yeah.
Because I'm just thinking the exploring thing, yes, I could eventually get to Elite on Explorer, but I will have seen so many identical yellow giants and rocky worlds out in the middle of nowhere that, I'll have gouged my own eyes out with a spoon, probably.
Exploring really has to be the most... I don't want to say
all you're
boring.
doing is logging it's there.
The most limited gameplay in the game.
I'm not sure what else you'd expect. I mean, some sort of weird Tetris mini game to run the mineral analyzer. I mean, that would be just terrible. But I don't know. It's the idea that there might be interesting and unique and rare things to find out there. And so far, I've not found anything like that. I mean, yes, there are certain types of planets that are more rare than others, and certain types of stars that are more rare than others. But ultimately, they're all just planets and stars. I'm not sure what else I'd be looking for. Thargoid space stations or what? I don't know.
Something will be added. I
There'll
don't know what it is.
Plot, but yeah.
I agree.
Perhaps
completely.
I ought to just fit the Viper for combat and have a go. You should in there.
You should do some combat. Yes,
I've done a little bit just as a proof of concept. Yes, that's their tick, but never really sort of fitted out with all the gear and gone for high-powered lasers or whatever.
What you really have to do in that game is you have to do a bit of trading to get money.
Yeah, trading does seem to be the way to get money. I mean, the exploration doesn't pay very well at all for the time you spend. I mean, I came back. I did a big old loop and came back with about 200,000 credits worth of explore data. But it took me about a week to earn.
Yeah, in that time I had got to the point where the items I was trading on my Cobra, because I started on Cobra, were getting me 200,000.
That's a shame then, because it suggests that far from the open world do what you like sandbox, it is literally here you go, start with a Sidewinder, then go to the Adder, then go to the Hauler, then go to the Cobra Mark III, or sacrifice everything for cargo racks and then look for the rare item. But the commodity list has about 20, 30, 40 items in, and I bet about 35 out of 40 of those items are useless as trade materials because
a lot of them are not profitable.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be one or two very high value, very small volume type density items, and you just constantly trade.
The metals are really good, and some of the processed stuff's really
maybe
good.
The mining might be a bit more interesting. I don't know, but it's asteroid mining. I haven't enjoyed mining in any game ever, to be honest.
The mining's not too bad. It's not.
I can tolerate mining when it is a large sort of oblong shaped block of copper sat on an MMO fantasy landscape, and you just right click it once or twice and then you move on. But beyond that, if mining takes anything more elaborate than that, I tend to zone out.
You say that, but Galaxy's mining.
Galaxy's mining. That was I know. I did enjoy that. Yes.
Are you obsessed about that?
No, I enjoyed in Galaxy's mining was not very involved at all. You put your mineral harvester down, you paid up its fees, you slotted it with power, you went off and you lived your life and came back later and got your minerals. It was the surveying, it was finding the minerals. That was the interesting bit. Perhaps there's an element of that in the asteroid mining in Elite. I need to try.
There isn't.
I need to try some other gameplay styles before I write the whole thing off, basically.
But it's very much a early version of the game.
It's a fantastic starting point, I will say that. But I'm getting the impression that, in all fairness, EVE Online had a very similar situation when it launched.
You remember when EVE launched?
There was almost nothing. Yeah,
there was nearly nothing there, and it wasn't until Moo came along.
I remember the first battleships being built and used.
Yeah.
And nowadays that's just standard PvE gaming gear for people who've been playing for 2 weeks or more, Yeah,
it was the way Moo played the game that shaped the game completely.
Yeah, suddenly we got this massive thing of empires and power blocks and player politics and so on, and none of that existed at the start. Obviously, it was go out, stare at an asteroid with a laser for a bit, go back to a space station, rinse and repeat, What fun's that? I think a lot of people who play EVE Online now still only ever see that.
Yeah,
but Elite doesn't seem to have anything comparable to the vast Empire game of EVE, and I'm not sure if it does it even want it. Does it need it? Is it a game about solo people playing in fighter spaceships?
A lot of the players seem to want it.
Yeah, and that's going to be a problem because I think their architecture means you can only really have 24 people in the same piece of space. So. I don't think EVE's really got anything to worry about.
No, EVE has plenty to worry about. But what EVE has to worry about is usually CCP.
Fair enough. So I don't know if I'm going to be talking about and playing Elite much more. I think I probably owe it a go on. I probably need to try some mining, try a bit of earnest trading, actually put cargo racks in for a start, and try a bit of combat and see if any of those are more sticky, I suppose. But at the moment, just purely the exploration, which I always thought was going to be the fantastic thing. Let's go out there, and I think I've seen too many episodes of Star Trek or something. I don't know.
I reckon never exploring Star Trek.
I reckon real life space exploration is going to be quite soul crushing.
You can count the exploration episodes on the fingers on one hand.
Every week they swoosh into a weird, vastly multicoloured nebula with an interesting looking planet or four around
No,
it.
they never did that.
And then they find a weird anomaly, and then they find an energy-based life form that they never encountered before.
Let's
and then
take Next Generation.
They solve some sort of racial
The
tension.
Enterprise D spent 7 years flying around the galaxy doing menial delivery tasks.
True. Mostly sort of, yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm looking for, really. Elite does scratch a particular itch.
Yeah.
The sort of the light second wide zooming around of solar systems and solar systems that are laid out in a reasonably believable manner as well. Quite often solar systems in these games tend to be like 30 kilometres wide and have planets the size of tennis balls, and you just sort of pootle about between them at 30 kilometres a second or whatever. But this really does drive home the immensity and coldness and loneliness of the universe, which I'm finding is perhaps not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
Perhaps I probably just want to play fantasy MMO after all.
Yeah. I don't recommend that either.
Well, that's pretty much it for me anyway.
Yeah, that's it for me too.
So we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.